Welcome to TradeTheNBA.com. This is John. This report is for the 21st of December, so the shortest day of the year. And also going to start seeing some more interesting trading because of the light liquidity. And we're already starting to see a little bit of that right now. S&P's off about 40. Well, when we look at our DOC, we saw this happening before Friday with the steel breaking down. And if that continues like it does, we also start to see secondary midterm buyers fading. So both of those combined, we were expecting Friday, at least that, come back here towards the ABM yellow, that we saw no improvement from those key metrics and also a rise of shorts. Not surprising that we're also getting the post-stimulus deal effect. We had the run-up leading to it. Now it looks like it's been worked through, and I think they're supposed to be voting on it, so that's literally what we're seeing there. Of course, the NQ, not nearly as weak, general, so the S&P, the broader market, suffering significantly more than we would see from the tech industry, and you can see that is relevant because the DOC right there, there's the beautiful contrast difference. So for the S&P, falling neutral to flat right here for the NASDAQ. Still, we are making higher highs on lower shakeout. That has broader implications for a little bit later on, deeper kind of fade. Of course, selling that news of the stimulus deal, euro fading off a little bit from that peak level, so we knew they were positive extremes, so they had to come back to that 121 range, but still even further. 124 on that previous extreme, and then of course that would be leading us back to this bottom within the range, that 118 to 111, which actually was more like 111 to 115 for the longest time, but the higher end of it was always around 116, and we'll see if it goes back to that. But there you have gold taking off, and that's part and parcel of the expectation that, as things improve, more and more vaccine stuff coming out, you're probably going to start to see that engine of economic activity start up a little bit more. And as it does, that liquidity that's been flooded into the market will start to express itself. From an intraday standpoint, well, it's pretty clean. We had some fairly decent early on buy setups that led to a series of positive extremes. So that set the first targets right around 37.08. And then previous to that, we had the other algo levels from dip below the red lines, as well as just the general low, because that needed to be retested from that extreme histogram with the magenta readings. And then we got pretty clean short there, and it just boom, cascaded all the way down to the bottom. I did mark this one because this is kind of an interesting when you see this happen quite often. Well, you get a decent buy from that orange setup going across, and then you get this battle right here between green and cyan. In this case, green took over for just a brief moment, and then cyan does. Now, this in the context of a no steel reset, which is more broad short. How do you know which one of these dips below the orange line is going to catch fire? Because when I see this, only the spikes above the +7 here that are turning around, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I could get a little bit of heat on a short setup going from there. Even when the orange candle came in right here, things were starting to look good. It immediately bifurcated here with the cyan rising and green immediately falling. What I'm looking for in this particular case to gauge that is, am I getting my red DOC above 13.5? And in this particular case, when that cyan moves forward, I'm also looking to see, is my red rising? And in this particular case, that's exactly what you've got. Not only do you have red rising, but you took out your previous peak, which was right around this 1135. And so at that same bar, you're getting rising red. Even though the cyan has moved over, you still had steel rising. And that usually is a warning not to be shorting into that setup as much as just allowing yourself to ride the momentum of that wave, and that's exactly what happens to you. End up with the, even before the DOC spread, you ended up with orange, spike above, steel crosses below, you have rising cyan in this particular case, and a zero line on red. Literally, you can wait for the next bar, which the program actually waits for a little more confirmation on that, but sure enough, that led to filling in all of these previous algo levels from before. No shock with that. And then we built up from that negative 13.5. Again, this is one of those right here where you can see it. The cyan crosses. You're still in very weak steel in this particular case, and you have your rollover setup taking place. So you know that one's likely to be the weak one. Not going to create that momentum run here. What you end up with is a series of rising DSC reds. Until you keep getting these little sparks that are happening below. You know, this did happen after you had this reset, but you had this whole period of no steel resets. This was all still what you would consider within a weak pattern. Literally, when you get that crossover, in this case, the green stays above, which really lets you see how strong that momentum is going to be, because when you do get that green that's rising above and maintains itself, you know you're in for a more extended run to the upside, which is also a good momentum thing to look for. That's even if we ignore the clear Power Mode 2 from its early cross that happened just earlier. Yeah, the declining one right here with the setup first, and then just after right here, this particular spot was 3680 range. Still took some heat all the way down to 78, so it was a 2-point, but still maintained the low, and then boom, built up off that and took off for almost 30 points in the upside direction. Of course, cyan into red at that particular point. DOC was clean and easy, and Power Mode 2 just stayed clearly above it the whole point going through, so there was no question about that one. And then literally to end the day session of the actual day, you end up with DSC spread. Held on for quite a while. This is always the difficulty after those, where you get this kind of back and forth and you're just sort of waiting, and it's this continued process of, is it going to break down? Nope, pops back up, keeps going, and literally did that for quite some time until just a little while ago, and we saw the clear breakdown. Really began strong after we get these series of steel dipping below orange with the rising cyan. You can see that the cyan overtakes it right about here, and you still look at, even within that, you're like, why is price doing this to me? And it's merely they're just getting out and filling in to add to more. You get the secondary crossover right there, and at this point you got green under red the whole time, and just red fading. So if you're not warned at that particular point to take any advanced move in price from there, you'd already filled these positive extremes, but you had this whole series. Well, going back all the way to right here, that even was below the previous one that was marked right there, the 85 level. So you could see there was pretty good range going to take place at that particular point. And sure enough, as the breakdown has begun here, we're now into much lower range than before. Not shocking, but still reasonable from a daily standpoint. I mean, this is hardly significant from where we are and the broad run-up that has taken place. But it's still early, so plenty of time for them to pull it right back up. So we'll just follow what the readings are. At this particular point, the DSC red's not horrible. I'm typically looking for any time it dips back below zero after a no reset period. So, for instance, looking at this down run that took place, I'm just looking for a dip that takes it at or near zero. In this particular case, got very close to it right here. We were right around 139, so almost completely reset. That made that one a little more difficult until we ended up further along, and that's why I pointed out the cyan split right there. But again, as it came across here, for this one, you dip down just before We were literally, what is that? 0.44, so even like less than half of the other previous one. So 0.44 on that dip, but then it actually right before the takeoff, you end up in negative territory. What that is, it's giving you what I would call a partial reset. Definitely just something to look for when you're trying to capture a bottom move. In this particular case, we're seeing several of them dip down here. These had potential, and they made pretty decent moves. I mean, we're talking 7+ points or so in a pre-market environment. Just did the same thing right there. Of course, you don't even have a buy setup yet. So I'm looking for it in relation to a dip of my orange going low, just so that you have a uniformity of the action. As always, though, trade well. We will certainly have an interesting short week.